I'm going to talk you through a Part C question from Paper 3, which is Hinduism. This question has been requested by a student, and I'm not surprised. So this is quite a difficult topic from Hindu beliefs. I'm going to talk you through a Part C because you could condense this down to also make a Part B question from it as well. And so it's explain Hindu teachings about free will. Okay, and obviously because the topic of the question is free will, I'm going to take you through and show you just how often that phrase appears in my answer. So, one Hindu teaching on free will. Free will is here. Free will is also here and here. Highlighted too much there. Free will is also, you can just see it at the end of this second paragraph here, and free will is also here. And so there's no doubt from the examiner that I am answering the question, and so he or she should have to give me the marks that I deserve. So, as is often the case with religions, and is often the case with Hinduism, there is not one consistent view. Because this is a Part C, I'm giving 4 explanatory paragraphs, and I am backing them up as much as possible with sources of wisdom and also using key terms. And I have been through and highlighted, I think, most of those key terms in advance in yellow so that you can see them. So my first teaching on free will is that we don't have free will. In fact, we have what is called fate, which is where our future is mapped out for us because God knows what is going to happen and God can't be wrong. So if God knows, for example, I haven't put this in my answer. If this was a Part D, I might expand and say, if God knows, for example, that tomorrow I am going to put on my lovely yellow shoes, tomorrow I will have to put on my lovely yellow shoes. And so, if God knows something, it has to happen. And Arjuna, when he is talking to Krishna, is told by Krishna that he knows everything that has happened in the past, the present, and the future. So that sounds to me like our future is mapped out. Please note, I have not put an exact quote. You don't need to do that. But I do know that roughly Krishna says to Arjuna, I know everything that has happened, is happening, and will happen. So that is my first paragraph. Source of wisdom is in there, and so are 1 or 2 key terms. Next paragraph revolves around the idea of karma. So that is my key term for that paragraph. And remember, karma is the idea that you do good, good comes back to you. It's, actions and consequences of them. And so if what happens is as a result of our actions, then we have free will. And the quote I have chosen, which again is Krishna talking to Arjuna, is the doer of evil becomes evil. I think that's quite a nice, short, snappy quote that you can remember. So if you're evil, you weren't fated to become that way. It's happened because you've chosen to do evil acts. And so therefore we have free will. My third paragraph is possibly the most difficult one. And I think you could possibly get 8 marks with paragraphs 1, 2 and 4. But I know that some of us have really got our head round the idea of Maya, which is the idea that we're trapped in a world of illusion and deceit, and have got our heads around the difference between Advaita and Vedanta. But Hinduism teaches that we are caught up in a web of illusion, where we think that what is real, where what we think is real isn't real. Okay, so we think that our physical bodies is what is real, but what's actually real is our souls. And so because we're so sort of attached to our physical bodies, and we forget that we are actually spiritual beings, and if you're a follower of Advaita Vedanta, that we are at one with Brahman. And so because we forget that, we think that we are these completely free physical beings that go around making completely free choices all the time. But Advaita Vedanta teaches that is not actually the case, and that we are at one with God, and so God is calling the shots. But also that we are not these physical beings having physical effects on a physical universe. All of that is just illusion. That's all Maya. And so if you think you have free will, that is because you are caught up in that web of lies. That is a really good paragraph if you get all the stuff about Maya and Advaita Vedanta. And if you have a look, I've not highlighted all the key terms, but Maya, web of illusion, spiritual, Advaita Vedanta, okay, possibly physical beings and so on, illusion. They would all count as key terms. That's a really solid explanatory paragraph, but it is difficult, and so if you haven't got that, use the other three. And then finally, I like this point because it's using the story of Rama and Sita, so you all know it. And if you remember, in the story of Rama and Sita, Rama and Sita are sent to the forest, and Rama draws a circle and tells Sita, stay in the circle and don't come out, and then you will be safe. And Sita is distracted by the golden deer, and so she leaves the circle to chase the deer and is then caught by the demon. And so Sita, at her most basic level, is using her free will. Her husband told her to do something and she freely chose to do something different. So you could use it at that very base level to say there are lots of stories in Hinduism where people choose to disobey God, and Sita is an example of that when she disobeys Rama. But you could make an even better point, because many Hindus would interpret that story to be a metaphor about how we as humans choose to do the wrong thing all the time, and it lands us in trouble. So Sita represents us. So we are these spiritual creatures kept safe by God, just like Sita is kept safe in the circle. But then material objects and things that we are attached to, they tempt us to turn away from God and to focus on the physical. And we chase them, we jump out of the circle and grab them and land in trouble. And that is our free will doing that. We can choose to follow God, or we can choose to get distracted by temporary things that don't matter. And that is free will. That's a good point to make, and perhaps an unusual use of the Rama and Sita story that would stand out, but using a story that's very, very familiar to you. So to recap, Part C on free will. My 4 points are: we don't have free will, we have fate. The future's mapped out because God knows what's going to happen. Second point, we do have free will because what happens to us is dictated by our previous actions through the law of karma. Third point, which is the most difficult, and not all of you may want to use this, is the idea that we don't have free will, and free will is an illusion. We think we're these physical beings having physical effects on the physical universe, and it's all nonsense. It's an illusion. And fourth point is we do have free will. And look at your Hindu scriptures, it's full of people doing things that they shouldn't be doing, so they are exercising their free will.